Last but not least on our program today, we want to talk to Austin Cooper and our two guests, but we're going to bring on Austin first, who is the managing editor of Our House DC, a bi-weekly newsletter published by the Washington Informer. So before we bring our guests on, Austin, I just wanted you to share the mission of Our House with our viewers, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Denise, and good to see you and good to see everybody on the program. Yeah, this initiative started last year in partnership with the Center for Public Integrity. And our primary mission, and we do this through, as Denise just mentioned, bi-monthly newsletter that examine the challenges that are being confronted by current Black homeowners, primarily in Wards 7 and 8, but really across the city. And so we do it with newsletters that come out every 2 weeks. We have also done a community forum back in March that examined property taxes, etc. We're also planning another community event. It will be with young millennials and exploring the challenges that they are facing, becoming and maintaining home ownership and passing along generational wealth. Our next newsletter will come out on Monday, May 23rd, and that story is written by my colleague Jamila Bay, and the topic is "Are Black Appraisers the Answer?" And so that will come out on Monday. In the following newsletter, we're expecting to have a summary of the previous 20, I think by then it'll be 25 newsletters that we have done. And I'm also excited to say that I'm working with a colleague, Asia Beckham, on a story that looks into the challenges faced by Black veterans who some benefited, many did not, from the GI Bill, which President Roosevelt signed into law in 1944. Congressman Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, who is also the majority whip in November with Senator Warnock from Georgia, introduced a bill, H.R. 5905, and that bill will it seeks to meet the shortcomings of Black veterans with regard to benefits in housing, education, etc.
So everything that Our House does really is focused on building and sustaining generational wealth. I know that a lot of the folks that you've interviewed always talk about, how do we build, or the need to build generational wealth. And we think that, home ownership is one of those ways in which particularly Black folks have been able to do it in the past and are seeking to do it presently. Isn't that the case?
That is the case. And, Denise, when you talk to older folk like me, folks like my mom, you ask them, what is generational wealth? We talked to Ambassador Andrew Young. We talked to HD Secretary Fudge a couple of months ago. And without exception, with older Americans, we have found that our parents, grandparents, really did not have a definition of generational wealth. It's very simple. We want to buy a home and we want to pass on this home to our children and to our grandchildren. And the definition for many young people, such as the young people who are about to get on the show, it is exactly that, but it's more. It is, it includes, buying stocks and bonds and other avenues of building wealth.
Well, life insurance falls into that as well.
Really absolutely.
Yeah, estate planning and all that. But I just wanted to give a little background on what you've been doing and the Our House newsletter. But I'm really excited to bring on as well Greg Jackson, founder of Ownership Matters, and Alexis White. Hope she's with us, a homeowner and investor in properties in the DC area. Welcome to WIN TV, both of you. Greg, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here. Hey, thanks for having us.
No, our pleasure, our pleasure. And Greg, I want to start with you first. When and why did you form Ownership Matters?
Well, it actually started with a group of my friends. There's about 20 of us who have been living in DC for a while. All were making good income and good salaries. But we realized due to the cost of living and the cost of eating and drinking and being in DC that we weren't saving any money. We weren't building any real wealth. And while we were salary rich, we were wealth poor. And so we decided to figure out how we can change that. And we looked at our number one budget item or budget cost, and that was living. And so the 20 of us decided to each buy a home and figure out how we can build wealth there. That we were in our late 20s at the time, and 18 of the 20 bought homes. But we also realized we didn't have a lot of support. You know, most of our families had bought homes in a whole different era, if at all. And so a lot of us were just trying to figure it out. And so as a group, we kind of learned from each other's mistakes, supported each other. And then once we got the keys, which we were excited about, we realized there was a whole new world of challenges, whether that was figuring out how to rent, what this impact it has on your taxes, how to maintain your home, how to build equity. What is equity? All these questions rose, and we kind of worked together as young Black men to try to figure it out together and learn. And we learned a lot, but we also realized that it's important that we share that wealth. And so we started to add friends to the network, and it went from 19 folks to 40 folks to 50 folks. And now there's over 1,200 young Black homeowners in the DMV area that are all part of one network, supporting each other with referrals and lessons learned, and helping new homeowners that join the network kind of navigate through this process to be successful homeowners and hopefully own additional properties.
Yeah, I want to get to Alexis, but you know, this is a story we don't hear. All we hear.
I think she broke up there.
Denise might have frozen. So Alexis and Greg, good to see you both. Alexis, homeowner and landlord.
Yes.
Before 30.
At 20.
Congratulations. Amazing. You were like 26, right? If I remember reading correctly.
Yes.
How did you do it? Why did you do it? Who inspired you? Tell us briefly your story. So proud of you, young sister.
Thank you. I'm a 5th generation Washingtonian. So we're all from Southeast. I was raised in Savannah Terrace. My mom, Congress Park. My grandmother, Simple City. Her mother, Simple City. So I've been here all my life. And growing up, we lived in 6 people in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I've never lived in a home. And I knew I didn't want to live like this. I know I don't want my kids to live like this or their kids. And my mom just didn't. My grandmother just bought her first home at 68. Like, my grandmother never had her own home. So they just didn't know what the concept was of generational wealth. And I wanted to change things. So I found this program called NACA. NACA assisted me with not having to put any down payment down, no closing costs. So when I hear I'm cheap, so if I hear I don't have to spend a lot of money, I'm in. And I really wanted to, it didn't make sense for me to buy a house because I'm a single woman with no children. And I wanted to invest. So I decided to buy an apartment building instead. So that way I became a homeowner and a landlord.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. Question posed to both of you. Do you believe that the DC government or local government is doing enough to encourage, to assist young people like you becoming homeowners? And if not, what ideas would you suggest if you had a Mayor Bowser or another mayor of a local municipality on this call now?
I kind of feel like me and Greg experiences might be different because I was homeless all through college, and DC government is the only reason why I was able to graduate. They helped me get free housing. They helped me get back and forth to school every day. They gave me clothes. They furnished my first apartment. I mean, DC government changed my life. I don't think I would have probably made it through college had I went away to college. So, but as far as the home buying process, I will say going from being poor to making a big adjustment, because all the services that I was getting through the DC government, it's like they just disappeared. Like, when you make a certain amount of money, you're not eligible for anything. Every time I went to go look at HPAP, the DC programs, oh yeah, you make too much. Okay, so I worked hard to do this. Now you can't help me. What? So only one that I could find that didn't have income restrictions was NACA. So I would say that's where the DC government stopped helping me at in the home buying process.
And
Yeah.
Greg, Brother Greg, what would you like to add to that, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alexis hit it the nail on the head. I mean, the biggest challenge with a lot of the programs is that it's based on income, but it doesn't take into account the average cost of living here. And so someone who's making $70,000, yes, that would be very wealthy in most situations. But if you're just renting, you're struggling in many parts of the city. And the accessibility to affordable housing is so slim, and there's so much competition for that housing that it's unrealistic for someone who is making less than six figures to even have those opportunities. And so you literally have, I would argue, the majority of DC residents who are young professionals, they may be making 70, 80, $90,000. But when you look at the money they're putting into their savings each month, it matches a lot of lower income individuals in other cities. And so the biggest challenge, I think, is that DC has been naive to the reality of living in this city and the cost of what it takes to live in this city and in this district. And while the intention may be there, it's not striking the right folks. And so what happens is you have a lot of programs that are underutilized. I think another major challenge we found is that if you do qualify for a program, the process is so tedious and so long and so manual that you may spend 4 months, 5 months trying to get through a program to qualify for a home. And we know how this market is. By then, every home you looked at has been sold. I mean, the average home is being sold within a week or 2 weeks in Washington. So you have to, how can you have a 4 month, process to get to the resources, knowing that the appreciation of homes is skyrocketing? I'll just share one more thing. In 2021, the average home equity increased by 16% across the country. So if you're giving me $2,000 and you're asking me, or $10,000 even, and you're asking me to wait 6 months to get it, the home that I'm looking at, if it's still available, has appreciated nearly double that. So it's cheaper for some folks to forfeit the program and just try to get in there off their own dime. And I think those are two unique realities to DC that I think the programs haven't quite met, specifically on home ownership programs, not government as a whole.
I actually think patience is a virtue. It took me a year and a half to get approved for NACA, because NACA has a condition where they want you to have 12 on-time payments for all your active accounts. And as a young person, we'd have missed a credit card or been late by rent for a day or two, but you have to have on-time payments for 12 months, number one. Number two, you need to be able to save 12 months of your expected mortgage. My mortgage is $3,500 now, so I needed to be able to save $3,500 a month. That's a lot of money. So, but I will say, had they instantly approved me, like what he's referring to, I probably wouldn't be in the position that I am now. I like the long-term goal that NACA sets you up for, and that's why they have like the lowest foreclosure rate ever. They set you up for success instead of setting you up for failure.
So Alexis, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg. I apologize. Go ahead.
We'll help the debate here. I love it, and I love Alexis. But I want to give you a tangible example. So my last property I bought it for $365 in March. In March, and it's now May. That house is now appreciated up to $480,000, which is a blessing for me. But if I was trying to buy that home, and NACA said, "Well, give us a year," that same house that I'm trying to buy for $365 is now going to be $500,000, and there's no way I can afford it. And so I think there's a balance between teaching the buyer proper habits, making sure they're prepared. But this market is unfortunately moving at a rate that a lot of us are getting priced out if we wait too long. I mean, I honestly believe within 5 years, you won't be able to find a home under $400,000 in this district. And that's a sad reality, but it is a reality. And if the programs really want to get us into these homes, especially young Black folks or, natives, then they have to keep up with the pace,
So, Alexis and Greg, so you are both homeowners, as I understand it, but you're both landlords. Is that correct?
Yeah, I own a 3-unit building.
So tell me about that process. What was that like?
Well, so NACA, the other benefit of NACA, so when you go into a regular lender, they look at if you can afford the entire mortgage. So you need to be able to afford to pay your $3,500 a month for, I think it's like 12 months, something like that. NACA factors in how much money I will get from those units. So let's say from the basement and my second unit, I get, let's say on Section 8, I get about $3,000 a month. They'll deduct that from the 3,500, and they want me to make that 500 times 12. So it worked out for me because it means I didn't have to make as much money to qualify. So it wasn't a comp.
I'm sorry, Greg, anything you want to add on that point?
No, I mean, I think, being a landlord is tough. I know that in DC, you have to go through DCRA, get your basic business license, go through inspections, and I appreciate all the protections they do for the tenants. What has been a struggle, though, is I feel like there has been a lot of, I feel like DC government has focused on protecting tenants from large slumlords and large landlords.
But not protecting landlords from the tenants.
Yeah, but it's not done a lot to develop and work with small landlords like Alexis and I. Folks who are just learning, who maybe are renting out 1 unit or 2 units. There's not a lot of resources for us to learn how to do that effectively and to make sure we are, doing what's right by our tenants, but also building wealth in a healthy way. And so some of the work they've done around Airbnb and short-term rentals has really been harsh on small landlords and folks who maybe have one investment property or just have an extra room to rent out. And so I will say that DC has been pretty tough. And I know a lot of folks who have decided not to invest in DC because of its challenges for small level landlords in the district.
Have either of you had the opportunity to present your concerns on specifically that issue you both just referenced to anyone with the administration?
No.
I will say my experience is, again, different from Greg's. I didn't think the business license they want for short-term rentals, for me, it was a quick process. I was approved in a week. And I had my license like that, but I also already had an existing LLC before I purchased my property. So I was able to get it under there. So
okay. Ownership matters. Are there any, do you have chapters across the United States? Are you aware, Greg, of any other similar chapters doing the good work that you're doing?
Yeah, so what was interesting during the pandemic, everything was digital. And while ownership matters, it's really just a network of homeowners in DC and the DMV area. But we did get on the Clubhouse, which is another social media app, and just start talking about our lessons, what we've learned, and some of the challenges. And that blew up. We got 70,000 members in Clubhouse who want to talk about home ownership and the process. And they're mainly future homeowners. But it was amazing to see how different the experiences were in different cities across the country, but also how similar young folks like Alexis and I are in our journeys, that we all are trying to build wealth for the first time for our families. We all are kind of learning from scratch, and we're all kind of trying to navigate a system that is kind of old, and there are, NACAs of the world that are really helpful. But at the local level, it's kind of just NACA. I mean, I think that's like one of the biggest programs we hear about everywhere. And I don't think NACA is like a DC government thing. I think it's a federal entity.
It's not a federal entity, but it's a U.S. wide program.
Right. Yep. And so it's interesting to see how people were kind of navigating through it and fighting it. Most of our folks most of our followers from Clubhouse are in the Atlanta area, LA, and Houston. And then obviously we have our DMV community here.
Okay, well, great. So, Greg, tell us a bit about the Community Justice Action Fund and the work you are doing to reduce gun violence, please.
Oh, yeah. That's a little bit of an aside, but that's what I do. I'm the executive director for a nonprofit that works on addressing gun violence in Black communities. I'm actually in Buffalo right now, helping with the response to the terrible mass shooting this past Saturday. But a lot of what we do is helping build community amongst survivors and activists that have been impacted or fighting to change this issue. We also do a lot of work advancing policy, specifically investments in victim services and programs that can help those who have been harmed by gun violence. And then we also do a lot of work to push back on how the media sees our community. I think a huge challenge with gun violence is that the media only portrays it as a crime problem, when in reality, only 30% of homicides in the Black community are connected to another felony. So it's not necessarily gangs, it's not necessarily drugs. What's happening to us is a public health crisis that's very complex, just like any other community. And so we're trying to shift the narrative and get our politicians and our public opinion to see this as more than a crime problem, so that they can start investing in strategies that reduce violence beyond policing, incarceration, and law enforcement. So that's a little bit about what I do. And it's been interesting because we've seen these two worlds combine. A lot of homeowners are now very concerned about violence in their community. And a lot of people who are impacted by gun violence are the folks I think should be the next generation of homeowners. And so hoping to bridge these two communities and help our people as a whole grow our wealth and be healthier.
Great, Alexis, when you hear about this, this almost seems like every day, gun violence impacting our community. Do you ever get, discouraged? Do you ever feel, hopeless?
No, I grew up in it. I told you I'm Savannah Terrace, so I grew up. I don't know, really young. I learned there's nothing on the corner for me. I don't need to sit outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed in the house a lot, because if there's no money for me to be made, if there's no profit out there for me to get, I'm not going outside. It's unfortunate that we can't just sit on our corner and not be in risk of being shot, but that it's the world we live in. And I'm not about to die because I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Sure.
So unless I'm going somewhere, I don't just hang outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think you got to be aware of the climate that we live in.
Greg, what's it like being in Buffalo? I guess tomorrow will make a week since the tragedy.
It's hard. I mean, you had 10 individuals who were shot and killed, and I think a lot of us, unfortunately, we're used to violence and we've seen it in our community. But I don't know if we've ever seen someone come in just off of hate and kill grandmothers. I think that's the scariest part is, we watch elders, being slain. And being here, it's a small community. It's a lot like Southeast DC. Buffalo, 80% of the Black people are on the eastern side of Buffalo. And so where everybody's concentrated, everybody knows each other. Everybody went to school together, have family, have friends. And for 10 people to be murdered, elders, I mean, every other person you meet is a cousin, a neighbor, went to church, went to school. That was my teacher. That was my, security guard. And so the entire community has been really just, the beautiful side of it, though, is that everyone's banding together. The local churches are helping with food distribution. The local urban league is helping find therapists from all over the country to work with folks. The local NAACP is helping with the victims and giving resources. The other stores in the area are donating food and helping the employees from the grocery store that was shot up. I was with a group that gave toys to the kids who were there and witnessed it. And I know toys doesn't fix it, but at least it shows that they're loved. And so there's still a lot of community coming together, but I think folks here really need as much support as possible. And it's been devastating, but a lot of it feels like home and where we're from in Southeast. And so I
Can I talk about something I do to try to combat that problem?
Please, Alexis, go ahead.
So what I do, I meet a lot of young people. So I help a lot of new graduates, so Black people, people of color, get jobs. So I own a resume and career business. So I'll fix their resumes, I'll prep them for interviews, and I help them land jobs. I found that a huge reason why a lot of these guys and the girls hit the streets because they can't find a job. I can't tell you how many people of color reach out to me with degrees making minimum wage. Or I'm like, okay, well, what salary range do you want? Oh, 40,000. 40,000. So you went to college 4 years to come out not being able to make enough to pay back your debt? No, that's not going to work. So I helped them get into positions that provides them a livable wage in DC. Livable is, unfortunately, it's just not 40,000. But that's what I do. So I've helped so far probably about 100 people. either to get into the firm that I currently work in or to get into other firms around the DC, mostly in technology, HR, recruiting, any positions I can help them with, I help. So that's how I try to, I don't know, I just feel like you can look at it from the other side, the negative side, and how do we address this issue, or we can try to stop it from even beginning. I had one guy I helped. When I met him, he was living in his car, and what happened was he kept getting job offer after job offer after job offer, but it would keep getting yanked because wrong place, wrong time. He had got just went to sleep behind us, went to sleep on the side of the road. And there's a law where if you're behind the wheel and you may be intoxicated, they can get you for a DUI. You have to literally cut your keys off, get in the back seat, and go to sleep. So he did the right thing by pulling over. He just fell asleep behind the wheel and still had the keys off in the ignition. So now this one moment is the reason why this young man can't find a job. So I made it my effort. I reached out to all my network and everything I could, and I took him from living in his car to now he makes like $95,000 in technology. I had to get him a job that didn't require a criminal background check, or let me rephrase it, that did not. They require a criminal background check, but they didn't. They won't count you out for a DUI.
Okay.
But that was the way.
Well, I want to thank you so much, both for your time this afternoon. I mean this quite sincerely. You, Alexis, and you, my brother Greg, are an inspiration to me, and I know countless others across the city. I have to take a nap and try to remember when I was your age. But keep on doing the great work that you are doing. And I believe my publisher, Denise Rolark had some technical issues, but I know she would have been on this program, and she also thanks the two of you and all of our other guests for a wonderful show today. I wish everybody a good weekend, and I'm going to pass it on to our tech folks for the bridge and what's going on in DC. Have a good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody, and weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.